The world was shocked February 24th, 2022, when reports emerged that Russian forces had launched an invasion of Ukraine from the east and north. More than a year has passed since that fateful day, and the devastating consequences have been severe. Tens of thousands of casualties have been reported on both sides of the conflict, leaving a trail of destruction and loss. Furthermore, the conflict has forced millions of Ukrainian citizens to flee their homes, seeking refuge across various parts of Europe. Supported by the West, Ukrainians have fought bravely to halt the Russian onslaught and even pushed them back from many places. But now the situation has come to almost a standstill. In this video, Defense Updates analyzes why the odds are stacked against Ukraine as it tries to reclaim its territory. Let's get into the details. While Russian forces were pushed back from Kyiv, they still occupy a significant portion of Ukraine and control many big cities. This makes things exceptionally difficult for Ukrainians. Traditionally, it's accepted that a defending force has a 3-to-1 advantage over an attacker. In other words, a defending force can hold off 3 times its own number of attackers. As Ukraine prepared for its counteroffensive to try to wrest back occupied territories, Russia fortified its position along the almost 620 miles or 1,000-kilometer front line. Satellite images revealed a multi-layered Russian network of anti-tank ditches, mazes of trenches, concrete dragon's teeth barricades, steel hedgehog obstacles, spools of razor wire, and minefields. Since Russia invaded Ukraine, the West has supplied lots of weapons, which include potent platforms like HIMARS, as well as some long-range missiles like Storm Shadow. But a restriction has been imposed. Ukraine can't use them for strikes inside Russian territory. In contrast, Russia frequently conducts strikes deep within Ukrainian territory, creating an unfair and unequal situation. This condition hampers Ukraine's ability to defend itself effectively, akin to fighting with tied hands. The practical implications are evident in regions such as Kharkiv, Sumy, and Chernihiv, where Ukraine has regained control up to the border. Ukraine is prohibited from striking Russian territory, while Russia enjoys the freedom to deploy artillery, mortars, helicopters, missiles, and more from its own territory. Consequently, Ukrainian civilians are left defenseless, unable to target launch sites, warehouses, and supply routes. Russia can continue its aggression without consequence. Moreover, this restriction allows Russia to amass troops near the Ukrainian border and potentially launch an attack at any given time. Ukraine is unable to strike these units to disperse them and prevent the accumulation of critical forces. As a result, Ukraine is forced to rely on building up its own troops, thereby exposing them to the risk of being targeted by Russia. This condition is unjust and places Ukraine at a significant disadvantage. It's unlikely that the West will lift this restriction anytime soon. The Russian Air Force had a 10-to-1 advantage against Ukraine when the campaign started. While the Russian air campaigns haven't been efficient, there's no doubt that it has an overwhelming advantage. Ukraine's Air Force currently relies on Soviet-era MiG-29 and Su-27 fighters, which are outmatched by Russia's more advanced Su-35 fighters and MiG-31BM interceptors. These Russian aircraft possess the capability to detect and engage Ukrainian planes from distances where counterattacks are not feasible. Russian fighters have superior radar systems and are equipped with long-range R-77-1 and R-37M air-to-air missiles, allowing them to engage Ukrainian aircraft from a distance without getting within visual range. As a result, Ukrainian pilots have limited opportunities to effectively retaliate, especially since they often have to fly at low altitudes to minimize their radar signature. Ukraine's only chance of having air superiority, or at least parity, lay with the supplies of F-16. but F-16s won't arrive before next year. Ukraine has very limited capacity when it comes to manufacturing weapons platforms or ammunition. Whatever it had before the war has also been largely destroyed. The story of Russia is different. Russian generals had anticipated a short and swift conflict, with Kyiv capitulating within days, but they were wrong. Russia faced a shortage of PGMs, precision-guided munitions, and several other key weapons. They managed by acquiring artillery shells from North Korea and drones like Shahed-129 and Shahed-191 from Iran. But reports are now emerging that Russia is ramping up its own production capacity. Viewers may note that Russia has a large military-industrial base and is the second largest weapons exporter in the world. This will make the situation harder for Ukraine in the coming days. On the 30th of September, a ceremony for signing the treaties on the accession of the Donetsk People's Republic, the Luhansk People's Republic, the Zaporozhye region, and the Kherson region to the Russian Federation took place in the St. George Hall of Grand Kremlin Palace. Two particular lines in President Putin's speech on that day were significant. He said, "I want the Kyiv authorities and their true handlers in the West to hear me now. And I want everyone to remember this. The people living in Lugansk and Donetsk, in Kherson and Zaporozhye have become our citizens forever." He added, "We will defend our land with all the forces and resources we have, and we will do everything we can to ensure the safety of our people. This is the great liberating mission of our nation." Basically, he indicated that if push comes to shove, Russia could use nukes. Viewers may note that the country has the largest inventory of nuclear warheads and does possess a vast variety of tactical nukes. A tactical nuclear weapon, or TNW, or non-strategic nuclear weapon, NSNW, is a nuclear weapon that's designed to be used on a battlefield in military situations. They're generally much smaller in explosive power, and hence threshold of its use is much lower. Ukraine has no means to counter such a situation.
Subscribe for more videos like this. Hit the like button if you find the video interesting, and kindly provide your feedback in the comment section. This will help us improve.